Imagine getting fired for being boring or forced to wear a red bracelet during your period. No, this isn't a dystopian novel. It's modern HR. We've uncovered 50 of the most absurd, logic-defying workplace rules that actually exist. From bathroom surveillance to mandatory happiness, these policies prove common sense is totally dead. By the end, you'll either quit your job or hug your boss. Let's get to work. 1. A Norwegian insurance company actually issued red bracelets to female employees to wear during their periods, just so managers would know why they were taking more frequent bathroom breaks. Yes, you heard that right. Instead of trusting adults to manage their own bladders, they decided to implement a scarlet letter system for menstruation. It was eventually scrapped after a massive public outcry and a scathing report by the labor union. But the fact that this made it past the brainstorming phase without anyone saying, "Hey, maybe this is a bad idea," is absolutely terrifying. 2. A major British utility company banned its field engineers from wearing sunglasses while talking to customers, claiming eye contact was crucial for brand warmth. Never mind that these people work outside, often staring directly at the sun while fixing dangerous equipment or digging up pavement. Apparently, risking permanent retinal damage and squinting uncontrollably is a small price to pay for making sure Mrs. Higgins feels a deep spiritual connection with the guy reading her gas meter. 3. A French court actually had to step in and rule that a man had the legal right to be boring at work. His consulting firm fired him for professional inadequacy because he refused to participate in their fun culture, which allegedly involved excessive drinking and humiliating hazing rituals during the weekends. The judge ruled that he was hired to be a consultant, not a frat brother, establishing a legal precedent that you don't actually have to like your coworkers to be good at your job. Honestly, would you rather be fired or forced to party with your boss every single weekend? 4. Retail giants like Walmart and GameStop have occasionally pressured employees to participate in TikTok challenges to make the brand look fun and relatable online. There is nothing quite as dystopian as watching a minimum wage worker, who probably doesn't have health insurance, doing a choreographed dance in the break room to help a billion-dollar corporation go viral. It is dignity being traded for algorithmic engagement. 5. Back in the early 20th century, Henry Ford created the Ford Sociological Department, essentially a private army of investigators who spied on factory workers' personal lives. These inspectors would show up at employees' homes unannounced to check if their houses were clean, if they were drinking alcohol, or if their marital relations were sound. If you failed the home inspection, you didn't get your 5-a-day wage. It was the ultimate intrusion. Selling your labor wasn't enough. You had to sell your privacy to the company store. 6. Hong Kong Airlines made it mandatory for all cabin crew to master Wing Chun Kung Fu before earning their wings. Not just basic self-defense, but actual, traditional martial arts training. The official reason was physical fitness, but the unspoken reality was the need to handle unruly drunk passengers at 30,000 feet. It transforms the friendly flight attendant into a lethal weapon. Next time you think about complaining that your meal is cold, remember that the person serving it might know exactly how to break your arm in 3 places. 7. A manufacturing plant in Pennsylvania tried to limit employees to exactly 6 minutes of bathroom time per day. If you went over, you faced disciplinary action. They installed monitoring systems on the doors to track every second you spent away from the line. Imagine trying to explain to a grown adult in a suit that you had a stomachache and now you're on probation. It treats human biology as a production inefficiency rather than, being alive. Be honest, how long do you actually spend in the office bathroom just scrolling on your phone to escape work? 8. Until 2001, Disney World required employees playing characters to wear company-issued underwear. The problem was the company didn't always wash them properly between shifts, leading to outbreaks of lice and scabies among the cast members. Staff were literally sharing unwashed undergarments until the Teamsters Union finally fought for the right to wear their own clean underwear. That creates a whole new meaning for hostile work environment. 9. The CEO of Atos, a massive IT firm, attempted to ban internal email completely, calling it pollution. He wanted a zero-email company, forcing everyone to use instant messaging or talk in person. While the goal was noble, it resulted in chaos, with people unable to document decisions or search for past instructions. It turns out, sometimes you actually need a paper trail, not just a vague verbal promise from Dave in accounting that he definitely processed your invoice. 10. One of the most insidious unwritten rules in corporate culture is the "we are a family" doctrine. While not written in the handbook, it's used to manipulate staff into accepting late hours and lower pay because you wouldn't let your family down, would you? It is a psychological trap. A job is a transaction. Labor for money. If your real family treated you the way some corporations do, monitoring your bathroom breaks and banning your sunglasses, you'd call Child Protective Services immediately. 11. In China, Canon Information Technology installed AI-powered cameras that only allow employees to enter the office or book conference rooms if they are smiling. It is called smile recognition technology, but let's call it what it really is: mandatory dystopian happiness. You could be having the worst day of your life, but to get to your desk to do the job that pays your rent, you have to grin like a maniac at a robot. It's the digital equivalent of a stranger on the street telling you to smile more, except this stranger controls your paycheck. 12. For years, the sandwich chain Jimmy John's forced its low-wage sandwich makers to sign strict non-compete agreements. These contracts legally forbade former employees from working at any other business that sold submarine, hero-type, deli-style, pita, and/or wrapped or rolled sandwiches within 2 miles of a Jimmy John's for 2 years after quitting. Because apparently, the technique for putting turkey and mayo on bread is a high-level corporate trade secret akin to the nuclear codes. They eventually dropped it after being sued. But the arrogance required to think you own a teenager's sandwich-making future is staggering. 13. Apple faced a massive class action lawsuit because they required retail employees to wait in line for mandatory bag checks before leaving the store, but refused to pay them for that time. Employees would clock out, then stand there for up to 20 minutes while security made sure they hadn't stolen an iPhone. Apple argued that bringing a bag was optional, so the wait was the employee's fault. The California Supreme Court eventually disagreed, ruling that if you control a person's time, you have to pay for it. It turns out, you can't be the richest company on earth and still try to stiff your staff on 15 minutes of minimum wage. 14. Amazon's warehouse algorithms are notorious, but in some facilities the system that tracks time off task is so aggressive that it automatically generates warnings if a worker stops moving for just a few minutes. This creates a reality where the algorithm is essentially the manager, firing people via app notification without a human ever reviewing the context. It's efficiency stripped of all humanity. Be honest, if you knew your boss was an AI that tracked every second you weren't typing, would you survive a single week at your current job? 15. For years, major corporations like Walmart and Winn-Dixie took out life insurance policies on their low-level employees, naming the company itself as the beneficiary. They charmingly called this dead peasant insurance. If a cashier or janitor died, the family got nothing, but the corporation received a tax-free payout worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. It turns your mortality into a corporate asset, incentivizing your employer to care more about your death than your life. Does knowing your boss might literally profit from your funeral make you want to work harder or just run away screaming? 16. General Motors used to have a 10-page dress code that went into excruciating detail about what was and wasn't allowed. When Mary Barra took over as head of HR, before becoming CEO, she replaced the entire document with 2 words: dress appropriately. Managers panicked. They allegedly called her asking for specifics, claiming they couldn't trust their teams to figure it out. It proved that many corporate rules exist not because employees are stupid, but because middle management is terrified of having to actually lead people instead of just policing them. 17. There is a company in Japan that instituted a rule where employees can get a pay bump if they marry another employee. But, and this is the kicker, they can also get a divorce bonus. If the office romance goes south, the company provides a heartbreak payment to help the newly single parties move out and start over. It sounds nice on paper, but do you really want your HR department financially incentivizing your breakup? 18. Tesla factory workers were reportedly instructed to avoid using the color yellow for safety markings and signs because Elon Musk simply didn't like the color. Instead of the standard, universally recognized high-visibility yellow used in dangerous industrial environments, they use shades of gray and red to match the aesthetic. When the safety of your limbs takes a backseat to the CEO's interior design preferences, you know the corporate priorities are officially upside down. 19. Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, operates on a principle called radical transparency. This means almost every meeting is recorded, and employees are encouraged to brutally criticize each other's ideas constantly. They even have an issue log, where you are expected to write down your colleagues' mistakes. They call it the pursuit of truth. Most people would call it a nightmare, where you are legally required to be a jerk to your friends. If your workplace had a mandatory snitch on your coworker log, who was the first person you would write up? 20. In 2013, a Pennsylvania court ruled that it was legal for a company to fire an employee for being too attractive. A dental assistant was let go because her boss, a dentist, found her irresistible and a threat to his marriage. He admitted she was a stellar employee, but fired her anyway to save his personal life. The all-male state Supreme Court panel ruled that this was not gender discrimination, but rather a specific issue of the boss's lack of self-control, which apparently is a valid reason to destroy someone's career. 21. In 2010, the Swiss banking giant UBS issued a 44-page dress code that read, "Less like a handbook and more like a controlling fetish novel." It explicitly instructed female employees to wear skin-toned underwear to remain invisible and mandated they avoid eating garlic or onions during the workweek. It even dictated the exact shade of lipstick required. The bank eventually retracted the guide after global mockery. But for a brief, shining moment, managers were technically authorized to inspect their staff's undergarments in the name of Swiss financial stability. 22. During the golden age of aviation, Pan Am stewardesses were subjected to mandatory pre-flight girdle checks. A supervisor would literally feel the women up to ensure they were wearing the required undergarments to smooth out their silhouettes. If a stewardess gained as little as 2 pounds, she was grounded without pay until she shed the excess bulk. It was a humiliating, systematic body-shaming policy disguised as professional standards. 23. Japanese companies are legally required to measure the waistlines of employees between the ages of 40 and 74 once a year. It is known as the Metabo Law, designed to curb obesity. If an employee's waistline exceeds the government limit, the company faces financial penalties, and the employee is forced into mandatory dietary counseling. Imagine your boss walking into your cubicle with a measuring tape and a disappointed look because you had a burrito for lunch. If your current employer measured your waistline tomorrow, would you pass the test or be sent to the fat camp? 24. Many Silicon Valley tech giants now require employees to sign love contracts if they decide to date a coworker. You literally have to disclose your relationship to HR and sign a waiver stating the relationship is consensual, just to save the company from a potential sexual harassment lawsuit later. Nothing screams romance like getting the legal department involved before the third date to confirm that your dinner plans are compliant with Section 4, Paragraph C of the Employee Handbook. 25. A major U.S. poultry processor was sued for deducting money from workers' paychecks for the time they spent using the bathroom. The conditions were so draconian that some workers reported wearing adult diapers on the production line just to avoid being penalized or fired for stepping away to relieve themselves. When your corporate efficiency model forces grown adults to soil themselves to keep the chicken nuggets moving, you have officially crossed the line from capitalism into cruelty. 26. Amazon once installed Amazon booths in their warehouses, tiny coffin-sized kiosks where stressed-out workers could sit and watch calming videos of nature for a few minutes. Instead of simply lowering impossible quotas or giving people decent breaks, the solution was a despair closet where you could scream internally while looking at a digital tree. It was a dystopian band-aid on a gaping wound of burnout, proving corporations will invent literally anything to avoid treating people like people. 27. Netflix operates on a brutal management philosophy called the keeper test. Managers are encouraged to constantly ask themselves, if this employee told me they were leaving, would I fight hard to keep them? If the answer is no, the employee is fired immediately with a severance package. It creates a Hunger Games atmosphere where adequacy is a fireable offense and everyone is constantly interviewing for their own job. It might be efficient, but living in a permanent state of existential anxiety is a high price to pay for a streaming subscription. 28. The trend of unlimited paid time off is often a massive scam. Studies show that employees with unlimited vacation actually take fewer days off than those with a set number. Why? Because without a specific allowance, taking time off becomes a guilt trip where you constantly wonder, is 2 weeks too much? Will I look lazy? It is a brilliant psychological trick. By removing the rules, companies make you police yourself into working more. Be honest, does unlimited vacation sound like freedom to you, or just a trap to make you never leave the office? 29. The state of Iowa once fired a worker for using reply all on an email chain. To be fair, he did it to 4,000 people, but the policy stated that misuse of government resources was a fireable offense. It is perhaps the only time in history that the universal rage against reply all offenders was actually codified into an immediate termination. Harsh? Maybe. But anyone who has been trapped in a never-ending email thread about a potluck lunch might argue he got exactly what he deserved. 30. Safeway supermarkets once enforced a superior service policy requiring employees to smile and make eye contact with every single customer. It backfired spectacularly. Male customers interpreted the mandatory friendliness as genuine flirting, leading to a massive spike in sexual harassment and stalking cases. The union had to intervene because staff were literally terrified to walk to their cars after shifts. It turns out, forcing a cashier to gaze deeply into a stranger's eyes over a carton of eggs isn't good service. It's just creepy. 31. A train driver for West Japan Railway Company was docked 56 yen, that is about 50 cents, from his paycheck because of a 1-minute delay. He had mixed up the platform location and had to rush back, causing a 60-second holdup. The company argued that no labor was provided during that minute, so no pay was due. The driver was so insulted by the pettiness that he sued the company for emotional distress, arguing that human error shouldn't be treated like a breach of contract. He died before the verdict, but the court eventually ordered the company to pay the 56 yen back. 32. Abercrombie and Fitch used to be so obsessed with their cool kid image that managers would reportedly punish employees for making mistakes by forcing them to do push-ups or squats in the middle of the store. It wasn't enough to just verbally reprimand someone for folding a shirt wrong. They had to physically exert themselves in front of customers like they were in a boot camp for beautifully shallow people. It was less of a clothing store and more of a frat house hazing ritual with better lighting. 33. Zappos, the online shoe retailer, has a famous policy called the offer. After a few weeks of training, new hires are offered their full salary for the time worked, plus a $2,000 bonus to quit on the spot. The logic is brilliant. If you are willing to take the cash and run, you don't have the long-term commitment the company wants. It filters out the people just there for a paycheck and leaves only the true believers. It's the one time in your life a company will literally pay you to go away. 34. In the retail and service industry, there is a soul-crushing scheduling practice known as the clopening. This is when an employee is required to close the store late at night and then return a few hours later to open it the next morning. We are talking about leaving at 11 p.m. and returning at 5 a.m. It treats sleep as an optional hobby rather than a biological necessity, leaving workers in a permanent state of zombie-like exhaustion just to ensure the coffee shop is open for the morning rush. Be honest. Have you ever had to work a Kloppen shift? And did you hallucinate from lack of sleep? 35. Before legislation started cracking down on it, it was becoming a disturbing trend for employers to ask job applicants for their Facebook usernames and passwords during interviews. The hiring manager would then log into your private account right in front of you to scroll through your messages and photos to see if you were appropriate for the job. It is the digital equivalent of an interviewer asking for your house keys so they can rummage through your underwear drawer while you wait in the lobby. 36. In Japan, thousands of women launched the Kachamacha Q2 movement, a play on the words for shoe and pain, to protest corporate mandates requiring women to wear high heels to work. We aren't talking about a fashion suggestion. We are talking about strict rules forcing women to stand for 8 hours a day in footwear designed to alter their bone structure, purely because some male executive decided that flat shoes look unprofessional. It is physically painful compliance enforced by the patriarchy. 37. Disney theme park employees are strictly forbidden from pointing with one finger. If a guest asks for directions, the cast member must use 2 fingers or an open palm. Legend says this is because Walt Disney was a chain smoker who always had a cigarette in his hand, so he naturally gestured with 2 fingers. The company sanitized the history, claiming one finger is rude in some cultures, but the reality is that thousands of employees today are mimicking the hand gestures of a 1950s smoker without the cigarette. 38. After a tragic incident where an intern died from exhaustion, Goldman Sachs introduced the Saturday Rule, which forbade junior analysts from being in the office from 9 p.m. Friday to 9 a.m. Sunday. It sounded like a mercy move, but in the cutthroat world of finance, the work didn't disappear. It just got compressed. It essentially turned Sunday into a panic-fueled 20-hour workday to make up for lost time. It's like telling a drowning man he's not allowed to swim on Saturdays, but he still has to cross the ocean by Monday. 39. An Australian government department once issued a memo banning staff from charging their personal mobile phones at work to save electricity. An engineer did the math and found that charging a phone costs about 50 cents per year. The memo itself, the management meeting to discuss it, and the time spent enforcing it likely cost the taxpayers thousands of dollars more than the electricity ever would have. It is the perfect example of stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime. 40. The clean desk policy is a staple of corporate micromanagement, but some companies take it to a psychotic level. Employees are forbidden from having any personal items, no photos of kids, no plants, no water bottles, visible on their desks at the end of the day. The idea is to protect sensitive information, but the result is an office that looks like a sterile furniture showroom where no humans actually live. If you can't have a picture of your dog on your desk, are you even really working, or are you just a temporary placeholder for a computer? 41. The trucking industry has embraced a level of surveillance that would make the CIA blush. Many companies now install driver-facing cameras equipped with AI that tracks eye movement. If the driver blinks too long or looks away from the road for a split second, an alarm screams in the cabin and a report is sent to HQ. It treats veteran drivers with decades of experience like unruly teenagers who can't be trusted to look out the windshield. Imagine doing your job with a camera 6 inches from your face, waiting to yell at you for sneezing. 42. To prevent theft, several major warehouse and logistics companies have enforced a no-pockets rule. Employees must wear pants without pockets or sew their pockets shut. If you need to carry your car keys, wallet, or feminine hygiene products, you have to use a clear plastic bag that makes your personal items visible to everyone. It is a policy that starts from the presumption that every single employee is a criminal until proven otherwise. 43. For decades, IBM had a company songbook, and employees were expected to sing songs praising the corporation at gatherings. One anthem, Ever Onward, included lyrics about how the company was the greatest institution on Earth. It wasn't enough to work there. You had to perform musical propaganda like you were in a North Korean choir. If your current boss handed you sheet music and asked you to sing a ballad about quarterly earnings, would you do it or walk out? 44. WeWork, the co-working startup that spectacularly imploded, once banned employees from expensing meals that contained meat. The co-founder claimed it was for the environment, so he essentially forced his personal vegetarian diet onto thousands of employees globally. You could order 5 lobsters and it was fine, but a burger was a fireable offense. It's the ultimate ego trip, using corporate policy to police what goes into your staff's stomachs. 45. A growing trend in the US is the Training Repayment Agreement provision, or TRAP. Companies hire you for a low-wage job, give you a basic training course, and then make you sign a contract saying, if you quit before 2 years, you owe them thousands of dollars for that training. It is effectively indentured servitude. They trap you in a job you hate by hanging a massive debt over your head that shouldn't exist in the first place. 46. In many open-plan offices, there is often a strict, sometimes written ban on microwaving popcorn. While it sounds petty, this is actually the only rule on this list that might be valid. One burnt bag can evacuate a building and make the entire floor smell like chemical sadness for 3 days. It is the one instance where corporate tyranny aligns perfectly with the public good. 47. For nearly a century, UPS strictly banned its drivers from having beards. Mustaches were allowed, but they couldn't grow past the corner of the mouth. It wasn't until 2020 that they finally relaxed the rules to allow facial hair and natural hairstyles. For decades, the ability to deliver a package was apparently tied to the smoothness of your chin, proving that corporate tradition is often just a fancy word for old habits we refuse to change. 48. There is a retail chain in the US that strictly forbids cashiers from sitting down, ever. The logic is that if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. Meanwhile, their European counterparts sit comfortably in ergonomic chairs because, surprisingly, your ability to scan a barcode isn't actually powered by standing until your feet go numb. It is a physiological power trip disguised as productivity, ensuring that employees are exhausted not by the mental load of the work, but by gravity itself. 49. A call center in Norway required employees to use a specific key card to access the bathrooms, which logged exactly when they entered and left. Managers were sent daily reports on excessive toilet users. It turns the most basic biological function into a performance metric. When you are analyzing spreadsheets to see how long Susan takes to pee, you have officially lost the plot as a business leader. All right, we have covered 49 absolute nightmares of corporate logic, and there is just one left. But before we reveal number 50, it is time for the final verdict. We have seen smile detectors, underwear checks, and bathroom timers. But the award for the most insane rule goes to number 15, dead peasant insurance. The fact that a company can legally bet on your death and profit from it while your family gets nothing is the ultimate example of a corporation viewing a human being as nothing more than a depreciating asset. Do you agree? Or did the period bracelets take the crown? Let us know in the comments. And now, our final number. 50. In China, many tech giants operate under the unwritten but mandatory 9x96 rule, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. Billionaire Jack Ma famously called it a huge blessing for young workers to prove their dedication. It is a system that explicitly demands you sacrifice your youth, health, and family life on the altar of productivity. It isn't just a rule. It is a lifestyle mandate that says your entire existence belongs to the company, and sleep is just a weakness leaving the body. So, we've survived 50 examples of corporate madness. But I want to know about you. What do you actually do for a living? And be honest, do you love your job, or are you just counting the minutes until 5 o'clock? Let us know in the comments. If this video made you feel better about your own boss, hit that like button and subscribe. See you next time.